Staying with us. Now let's explore this story once again. The heated exchange between Eskom board member Busi Mavuso and SCOPA chair Hlengwa continues to draw attention. During SCOPA's meeting with Eskom board this week, Mavuso said the ANC is to blame for the power utilities problems. She was asked to leave and was accused of bringing politics into the meeting. Now many have praised Mavuso, including One South Africa movement leader Busi Mavuso. Let's listen in on that engagement.
These board members are well within their right to expose the truth of the entity. You see, the greatest challenge that has happened in the recent years is that the ANC had felt it comfortable to select particular individuals, deploy them to boards, and once they've deployed them to boards, they expect those people to acquiesce to what the ANC wants. They expect those board members to not do their duties. And we've seen it in too many state-owned enterprises. I want to applaud this particular board member for the courageous actions that she's done. I want to inspire all the other board members, whether they're in the liquor board or the gambling board or any other board, state-owned entity, need to be able to pronounce on illegalities that take place when government takes action, and that she was correct in saying the political mismanagement and the governance failures that the ANC has brought upon Eskom need to be exposed. It's a fact of truth. It cannot be something that now suddenly we must now chastise an individual for stating what is plainly known to all South Africans. I'm deeply disappointed at the role of Parliament. We've had a toothless Parliament for many years. And I was very excited about the role that Honorable Hlengwa was playing. And I'm disappointed at his actions now, that he has to now take on a member of a board member who is speaking an absolute truth that South Africans experience. If there was no mismanagement, none of us would be experiencing a 14-year-old blackout situation. And therefore, I think that we need to recapacitate the role of board members. We need to strengthen it. We need to support it. And we need to give protection to these individuals when they do their job of governance in state-owned enterprises. To muzzle them will be to kill oversight.
Now, after that interaction, the Public Enterprises Ministry is calling on Mavuso's comments regrettable and her conduct unbecoming for a Eskom board member. To discuss this further, we are joined by the former SCOPA chairperson, Themba Godi. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Godi. We do appreciate it. And I think the reason why we've called you on the show and asked you to be part of this discussion is because I think many South Africans want to understand the kind of conduct and behavior that is acceptable as a SCOPA chairperson, but also as, for example, an Eskom board member. From your understanding with this engagement, which I'm sure you've seen, was it acceptable for the current SCOPA chairperson to call a board member and say to her, either you behave or excuse yourself, because she felt the necessary explanation due to the reasons for Eskom's mistakes and the position Eskom finds itself in is due to the leading government at the moment?
Well, the chairperson of any meeting of a parliamentary committee has the right and the authority to ask anyone to leave a meeting or to conduct himself or herself in any particular way. But then it must be justifiable. And the question is whether in this particular instance, can we all say it was justifiable? I think it could have been handled differently. I feel that an opportunity was missed for accountability, because here was a board member saying, no, management and the board cannot be the fall guys. There are others who have added to the problems that we're having. Instead of saying she's insulting them, she's engaged in theatrics, or she conduct is unbecoming, the challenge should have been put to her. What do you mean? How is that linked to the current problems we're having at Eskom? And only after she has explained herself can you then pass a judgment whether she was right or wrong.
And I think this is probably going to be the next question as to whether or not she was indeed in contempt of Parliament, because this is what Mr. Hlengwa had said to Ms. Mavuso, that he's going to find her in contempt of Parliament after she tried time and time again to explain herself by saying that these are the facts on the table and the current board and the current management can't speak for previous mistakes and issues that have been raised. They can only speak for what they know and what they've been asked to deal with since the last SCOPA visit. Can somebody be found in contempt of Parliament for raising an issue or answering in a specific way that they feel is best for that specific question?
No, I think that's just atmospherics. There isn't anything like that in this particular instance. I'm actually surprised and disappointed that members of Parliament, who are themselves politicians, when a point is raised that tries to say, look, the challenges we're having at Eskom are much bigger than just poor administration, they take no interest in that. I mean, we know that the ANC has, through their various leaders, have stated that they have taken particular actions around Eskom and said everything is done from Luthuli House, who should be put into the board, who should be removed, who should be, put into management. So you therefore can't say that at Eskom we're dealing with a purely administrative problem with a total absence, of political influence or political accountability. So I think that I could have handled it differently. I could actually have given her more room to say, speak, tell us, what is it? Because the issue was, why is it that since 2019, there are 23 recommendations for the completion of Kusile and Medupi? Why is it that you have only implemented 9? So when she brought that part, then she would have been challenged to explain. I think the public has been done a disservice in that we are not able to hear exactly what it is that she wanted to say. And, the Department of Public Enterprises response is a bit, intimidating. I see the ANC also say something about Eskom not being transparent with them, telling them stories. So the whole thing is muddled, and it is important that whoever has any view or perspective must be given the opportunity to express themselves, especially in front of the representatives of the people.
I was going to ask you what your response is to the fact that the Department of Public Enterprise is releasing a statement saying that they are going to be looking at her conduct in a very serious light, and they find it regrettable and unbecoming as to how she responded. But then you look at the opposite side of this, Mr. Godi, and many are saying that for once somebody actually spoke the truth and decided to leave that SCOPA meeting because she cannot answer to the mistakes and the decisions that were made regarding Medupi or Kusile, and that's the reason why Kusile is where it is and why it's not completed, and it's taken 15 years instead of the 6 years planned, is something that the current board cannot answer for. What I also find alarming is how the current SCOPA chairperson, Mr. Hlengwa, said to Ms. Mavuso that you wanted to leave at 11 o'clock anyway, so you engineered this whole scenario and alluded to the fact that the media was there, and this is what media does. They bring out the worst in people and don't allow people to deal with the real issues here. What is your response to a comment like that by a SCOPA chairperson?
No, I think it's very unfortunate, to put it diplomatically. You don't respond like that to issues. As the chairperson, you're supposed to be there to calm things down, to make sure everybody feels protected and accommodated. You don't become part of the mudslinging. And I think, like I said, it could have been handled better. And what I find interesting is that there is no interest in taking responsibility and accountability by the ANC for anything, except where they must take the glory, where things have gone bad, like in the case of Eskom, which affects the economy, which affects all South Africans. It's almost as if they are an opposition party to the Eskom board and management. They take no responsibility whatsoever. But if you were to talk about the Guptas and former president, everybody is happy to speak as much as they want. I think there's a problem of lack of accountability, openness to the public, and say truthfully, this is where we have gone wrong, this is how things have gone wrong, and this is how we're trying to fix them, without really trying to be so overtly defensive from the parliamentarians right up to the department and through to the ANC as a party.
Mr. Godi, I want to move over to the issue that and the comment that was made by Mr. Hlengwa as Ms. Mavuso was walking out, saying that this is politics of the gutter and recommendations will be made with regards to action taken against Ms. Mavuso because of her conduct. And she even said as she was walking out, you do so. What kind of recommendations or action could be made against a board member from SCOPA as a whole in a situation like this? Because I don't really think anybody's walked out, or if somebody has walked out, have there been repercussions or recommendations made against somebody because of their conduct or their choice of answer?
Yeah, once again, I think these matters of public importance can and should be handled with a lot of care. Because as you indicate, I think that kind of exchange does not belong to a parliamentary committee whatsoever. Well, as far as I know, members of government are invited to appear before parliamentary committees. They are not subpoenaed. So even if they walk out, there are no legal repercussions per se, except that SCOPA can report that to Parliament, or they can write to the relevant department, and then the department itself can decide whether it takes action or not. But I would imagine that if such a thing were to happen, then the lady will need to be heard. What did you do? What happened? And then it opens up the entire discussion, and a different conclusion may be arrived at, because like all of us have seen, I think it could have been handled more maturely than it was, and would not be having this kind of spectacle that is before us.
I want to ask you, Mr. Godi, whether you think the treatment and reaction would be different if this was not a female board member.
Well, I can't say for sure. What all I can say is that when members of boards or even officials appear before Parliament, I had always tried to protect them, to say, see, let's be robust in our engagement, but let's not go to the person. Let's not go to the person. Let's deal with the official and the work. And of course, you know, living in a patriarchal society, those questions are not far-fetched to say, well, this is a woman, these are males attacking her. If it was another man, could the comments have been framed in the same way? Or she became, you know, a good sacrificial example so that other board members could, you know, be cowed down without really dealing with the facts. I would love that. Let's deal with the facts. Hear people out and then demolish whatever they're saying without really being dismissive and taking offense at the slightest, you know, disagreement. So I think those elements do come in. However, the issue remains that the board of Eskom and the management of Eskom must account. But in so doing, Parliament should do itself a favor by not hindering that process, by being really so touchy that the focus gets taken away from accountability to the drama that we have before us.
Or giving a board member an ultimatum and saying behave or excuse yourself, and almost not giving them an option. Just lastly, Mr. Godi, I just want to ask you what you could expect to happen moving forward, as the shareholders indicated that they are looking at the matter very seriously, and of course SCOPA chairperson Mr. Hlengwa saying that they will be making recommendations. At the end of the day, it diverts from the real issues on the table, trying to address problems at Eskom. The people on the ground continue to suffer. But what is your assessment of what could possibly come out of this heated engagement between the two?
Well, firstly, I found that the Ministry of Public Enterprises is very loathsome to accountability. And the fact that the lady has actually pointed a finger in their direction, even if it's at the political party, has somehow, earned her their wrath. Because she was appointed by the minister, it is him who can take action. SCOPA can merely write a letter of complaint or recommendation, but ultimately it is the department that can act. And I think the country should just watch. If she is removed, it means people don't want to account. Don't ever point finger at us. It's good to point fingers at everybody else, but let us not be held accountable, which is very, very unfortunate.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your insights. We do appreciate it. That is the former SCOPA chairperson, Themba Godi. Thank you.